Hey everyone, Anders here. We're going to go over the latest information on the MMORPG ArcheAge Chronicles. This game has been in the works for a while by XL Games with Kakao Games publishing. It was set to release at the end of this year before it was delayed to the first half of 2026. Today we had the Q2 earnings report for Kakao Games, which as I mentioned is publishing ArcheAge globally, and this gave us an updated timeline for their game releases. The new schedule shows ArcheAge Chronicles and Chrono Odyssey have both been delayed. ArcheAge Chronicles will now be releasing first in the third quarter of 2026, and Chrono Odyssey will now release Q4 of 2026. As for ArcheAge Chronicles, they mentioned a couple of things in the earnings call I want to go over. The delays are part of a revenue strategy to enter the market with minimal competition to foster long-term growth. They think this will give them more time to develop and release games that will be received well at launch. They also made a point to emphasize they will be communicating more regularly about the status of their game development with regular updates and concrete evidence of progress. When asked exactly why these games were delayed, they mentioned the progress of their game titles are at different stages, but gamer expectations and industry competition is currently very high. They want to focus on having a strong launch, and they want to improve on the completeness of their games. Chrono Odyssey had a CBT that made them recognize there was a lot of interest in the Western market, so they decided to increase the polish of the game even more, even if it takes longer to release. They talked about the negative feedback and how it should be more gamer friendly. They were asked for more information on what exactly was the overarching feedback on the beta for Chrono Odyssey, and they said they were able to identify two major factors. Now first, the CBT showed that there is competition and a thirst for a game like Chrono Odyssey. They had over 2 million player signups for the playtest. They say the graphics were set to be unrivaled in a lot of their feedback. And the second factor they gave was that the CBT was a great learning process, an opportunity for Kakao Games as a publisher to learn how to handle such a large audience. And this helps them understand the Western market better, how to communicate with the community, and how to cut through the language and cultural barriers. For Project Q, which is a Lionheart Studios developed game, makers of Odin Valhalla Rising, it's a Northern European style MMO, and it's been delayed to focus on making the quality the best it can be using Unreal Engine 5. Odin did very well for them in Korea, so they're hoping to capture similar success with Project Q. I'll have a dedicated video going over all we know about this Project Q title soon on the channel, but for now let's move on to ArcheAge Chronicles and what was said about their delay. For ArcheAge, they mentioned the game is not delayed because of development problems, but rather it is on schedule and there will be a global user test before the end of the year. However, they've had feedback that combat needs more work. They also admit that Chrono Odyssey's CBT response was a big factor as to why they delayed ArcheAge and are approaching CBTs in general very differently from now on. They also confirmed there will be additional CBTs throughout the year leading up to the Q3 2026 release. They mentioned they already had an NDA closed beta test that let them see they have some work to do, especially with questing in particular, but they think they can sort out any issues through more CBTs before the release next year. We also received an ArcheAge Chronicle developer update a few days ago, giving us an outlook on what to expect moving forward. I'll read through it quickly and then we can go over what seems to be their approach with this ArcheAge title. Hey everyone, I'm Hamyoung Jin, executive producer at XL Games, and I've got some news to share with you about ArcheAge Chronicles. This project has been quietly growing behind the scenes for a while, and today I want to share what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it ties into everything we've loved and maybe struggled with about ArcheAge as a game series over the years. We didn't want to just do a sequel, we didn't want to reboot what came before. Instead, we saw a chance to tell a new story, one set 50 years after the events of the original. Aurora, once wild and dangerous, is starting to come alive again, people are returning, settlements are rising from ruins, and you're part of the first wave of brave souls heading back in. This isn't ArcheAge 2, it's not a traditional MMORPG. What we're making is a discovery-driven online action RPG. Think tighter combat, more focused pacing, and a world that's still shared and social, but not built for massive Zerg fights or dozens of overlapping systems. Let's talk about the combat first, because it's been a huge focus for us. We built it from scratch with combo-driven mechanics, dodges, and some really satisfying weapon-specific skills. It's punchy, it's responsive, and above all, it rewards smart play over simply spamming skill rotations. Chronicles isn't just about fighting. We've been putting a lot of love into exploration and storytelling. There aren't glowing arrows dragging you to objectives here. You'll find forgotten temples, strange characters, ruins with secrets whispered by old gods, some things you'll find by accident, and that's the point. We want you to explore and find secrets along the way. The world is shared with others, but it's more intimate. Smaller groups, meaningful cooperation, moments that feel personal, not chaotic or dominated by Zergs. We've learned a lot from ArcheAge, its highs and its pain points. Our goal isn't to copy what worked, it's to take that spirit, the freedom, the discovery, the ambition, and apply it in new and exciting ways. It's not about outdoing the past, it's about evolving. Expect life skills, housing, and crafting to return, shared housing areas, decor you can actually interact with, NPCs who feel like housemates and not just decorations, crafting that's tied into your character's growth and the player economy in real ways. We've already had a few small focus groups play early builds under NDA for now, and the feedback has been incredibly helpful and encouraging. We'll be expanding those tests soon, so stay tuned if you want in, as we'll be putting out feelers for more players. We'll have a lot more to share in the coming weeks and months. For now, I just want to say thank you for your patience, for your memories of ArcheAge, and for your curiosity about what comes next. Now, I have a few notes about what he said in this update, now that we know a little bit more about the release schedule. Now, first, we've known for some time now that this version of ArcheAge Chronicles, will not have any factions, and instead of a PvP focus, they are prioritizing PvE. This developer update further clarifies that player numbers will be limited in normal gameplay, focusing more on smaller group content rather than large raids or Zerg-like content. We know from the Kakao Games Q1 earnings call 3 months ago that ArcheAge was planning a CBT under NDA for around 100 Western users. For Chrono Odyssey at that time, they said they also had been through a CBT of around 150 primarily Western users. You may remember some of these testers were the content creators that released videos on Chrono Odyssey shortly before the global playtest was set to launch, and from that earnings call, Kakao said that the majority of user feedback from those 150 testers was positive. Chrono Odyssey, according to their statement, was in the polishing phase and all major systems were complete, which led them to release the playtest we now know was not well received. Now remember, these are reports that don't tell us the whole story, so them saying the feedback they got from these NDA testers was overall positive could mean nothing. And I mention this because at the time of that Q1 report, ArcheAge Chronicles was also said to be done with the core systems in the polishing phase, even preparing for the very same limited 100 Western user beta test that would be under NDA until the announcement of a global playtest for ArcheAge. Now instead, in today's Q2 earnings call, we saw the delay of ArcheAge and them admitting they're taking their time and re-evaluating how they handle CBTs from now on, promising better communication and more transparency, which I think is a good sign. These delays are good in the long run. It shows they are serious about trying to deliver a game that hopefully succeeds for them, but we'll have to wait for when we playtest upcoming betas to see if the games at their core are worth playing when they release. That's all the info I have for you today. Stay tuned on the channel as I continue to cover more upcoming MMOs and online RPGs, and let me know what you think about the delays to ArcheAge Chronicles and Chrono Odyssey and their decision to focus more on PvE instead of the large-scale PvP the original ArcheAge was known for. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.